My world is built of light and logic. It exists behind the screen of my dual 4K monitors, a silent, elegant universe of interconnected data points, of flowing code, of pure, crystalline reason. In my world, every problem has a solution. Every variable can be accounted for, and the truth is not a matter of opinion, but of elegant, verifiable proof. This digital sanctuary is where I have spent the last year of my life. Every spare moment, every late night. It is where I built my masterpiece. Her name is Chimera, out here in the physical world of the Aperture Dynamics campus in Seattle. Things are less elegant. The office is a sprawling, open-plan space designed by a committee to foster synergy and spontaneous innovation, which in reality means there's nowhere to hide from the constant low-grade hum of other people's conversations and the smell of microwaved fish from the communal kitchen. My desk is my small island in this sea of forced collaboration. It's clean, minimalist, the only personal touch a single small, framed photo of my parents and my Lolo standing on a beach, the brilliant blue of the Sulu Sea behind them. A small piece of Sibyllum, a world away, a reminder of a different kind of logic. A logic of quiet work, of patient hands, of letting the results speak for themselves. A logic that I am beginning to learn does not apply here. Here at Aperture. The one who speaks the loudest is the one who is heard. And no one speaks louder or more beautifully than my boss, Mark Brewer. Mark is a force of nature. He doesn't walk through the office. He glides, a shark in a perfectly tailored suit, trailing a wake of expensive cologne and corporate buzzwords. He is handsome, charismatic, and possesses a truly breathtaking ability to speak for 20 minutes without saying a single concrete thing. He is a master of the game. He doesn't produce work. He leverages assets. He optimizes workflows. He ideates disruptive paradigms. His primary skill is identifying the best work of the quiet. Introverted geniuses on his team, people like me, and skillfully reframing it as the product of his own visionary leadership. He is, in short, a magnificent, infuriating fraud. I am his greatest untapped resource. For a year, I had kept Chimera a secret. It was my passion project, born from a frustration with the clumsy, inefficient, predictive models our company was using for its global supply chain. Our models were reactive. They could tell us when a shipment was already delayed by a storm or a dock workers' strike. I wanted to build something that could see the storm coming before the clouds even formed. Chimera was not just a program. She was an intelligence. I had designed her to be an insatiable omnivore of information. She ingested global weather patterns, geopolitical tensions, social media sentiment, and 1,000 other seemingly unrelated data streams. She learned, she adapted, she saw connections that no human could. She could predict a dock workers strike in Shanghai based on a series of angry posts on a local union's Weibo page. She could predict a 3-day shipping delay out of Brazil based on a subtle shift in the Atlantic Ocean's temperature. She was a crystal ball, built of code, and she worked. In my simulations, using years of historical data, she had predicted every major supply chain disruption our company had suffered with a staggering 99.7% accuracy. She was worth millions, billions maybe. And it was finally time to show her to the world. I scheduled a one-on-one meeting with Mark in a small glass-walled conference room we called the Fishbowl. I was nervous, my hands trembling, slightly as I connected my laptop to the large monitor. This was my moment. the moment my quiet work would finally speak for itself. "Morning, Chloe," Mark said, breezing into the room, a large, steaming latte in his hand. "What you got for me?" Fired up to synergize. "It's a new predictive model, Mark," I began, my voice a little shaky. "I've been working on it in my spare time. I call it Project Chimera." I poured my heart out. I didn't just show him the data. I showed him the art. I walked him through the elegant architecture of the code, the multi-layered neural network. I showed him the simulations. The stunning graphs were the red line of chimeras. Predictions perfectly mirrored the black line of historical reality. I showed him the final report, a conservative estimate that my project could save the company upwards of $200 million in its first year alone. I finished, my heart pounding with a mixture of pride and anxiety. I had just handed him the biggest win of his career on a silver platter. I waited for the look of awe, the excitement, the dawning realization of what this could mean for us, for our team. He took a slow sip of his latte. He looked at the screen, then at me, and he gave me a pleasant, dismissive smile. It was the smile of a parent looking at a child's crayon drawing. "Wow, Chloe," he said, his voice full of a bright, patronizing enthusiasm. This is really neat. A lot of initiative here. I love the hustle." He tapped a finger on the table. "Super cool." "Cool." He was calling my life's work. "Cool. The thing is," he continued, leaning forward in a pantomime of conspiratorial sincerity, "we're really laser-focused on the queue for deliverable. Right now. The Pegasus update is the big rock we all need to push, and I need you bringing your A-game to that. This is a great passion project, really. A neat little tool. But it's a bit outside our strategic roadmap, you know?" I just stared at him. He didn't get it. Hadn't understood a single thing. I had shown him a revolutionary engine of prediction, and he had seen a neat little tool. The sheer galactic scale of his technical incompetence was stunning. He was a car salesman trying to evaluate a spaceship. "Let's do this." Standing up, the meeting clearly over in his mind. "Let's put a pin in Chimera for now. We can circle back on it next fiscal year. For now, I need you to focus up on Pegasus. Can you do that for me?" He gave me another one of his dazzling, empty smiles. "You're my rock star, Chloe. I need you on the big stage." I felt a cold, quiet rage begin to build in my chest, a rage all the more potent for being completely invisible. He was the one who craved the big stage. I was just the one who built it for him. "Of course, Mark," I said, my voice a flat, dead thing. "I'll get right on it. That's what I like to hear," he boomed, and with a final, cheerful finger gun gesture, he was gone, leaving me alone in the fishbowl with the ghost of my masterpiece. The walk back to my desk was the walk of a defeated soldier. I had shown him my greatest creation, and he had told me to put my toy away and get back to my real work. The humiliation was a physical weight. I had been so naive. I had believed. In the meritocracy, I had believed the work would speak for itself. But my quiet work had whispered, and Mark's loud, charismatic ignorance had roared. In the world of aperture dynamics, the roar always wins, as per company protocol for personal projects. I had to archive my work. I opened a new file on the company's secure central server. A digital tomb. I uploaded everything. Every line of code, every data set, every slide from my presentation. I typed in the project name, Chimera, and then I added the final required tag. Status, shelved. I hit the enter key. And with a quiet digital sigh, my beautiful, brilliant Chimera was gone. Locked away in a server farm in Oregon, another forgotten idea in the vast digital graveyard of corporate innovation. I put my headphones on, turned up the music until it was loud enough to drown out the sound of my own thoughts. And I opened the tedious, mind-numbing code for the Pegasus update. I did my job. I did the work. I spent the rest of the day in a state of deep, dejected mourning. I had lost. He had won. But what I didn't know, sitting there in my little cubicle, was that the betrayal wasn't his dismissal of my work. That was just the prologue. The real betrayal, the one that would change everything, was still to come. He hadn't just shelved my project, he had put it in his pocket. And he was just waiting for the right moment to claim it as his own. The 2 weeks following the rejection of my life's work were a masterclass in corporate gaslighting. On the surface, everything was normal. I came to work, I sat at my desk, and I dutifully worked on the Pegasus update, a project so mind-numbingly dull it felt like a punishment. And in a way it was. It was my penance for daring to innovate, for daring to create something that was not on Mark's approved roadmap. I was being put back in my box. Mark, for his part, was a whirlwind of solicitous charm. He would stop by my desk several times a day, a concerned look on his handsome face. "Hey, Chloe, just checking in," he'd say, leaning conspiratorially over my monitor. "Don't be too discouraged about Chimera, okay? It's great work. Seriously, we'll find a place for it. Just not this quarter." He was trying to manage my disappointment to ensure his rock star didn't lose motivation for the boring work he actually needed me to do. But then his questions started. They were always casual, framed as idle curiosity, you know. "I was thinking about your algorithm for Chimera," he'd say, sipping his latte. "The way it processes sentimental data is fascinating. How did you manage to get it to distinguish between sarcasm and genuine intent?" Just curious for my own edification. And I, like a fool, would tell him. My academic honesty, my creator's pride, made it impossible for me to refuse. I would explain the complex weighting I had assigned to linguistic markers, the cultural, nuanced libraries I had built from scratch. I was, in essence, giving the man who had just buried my project a private tutorial on how to operate it. I was teaching him how to drive the car he was about to steal, the only respite from this slow motion. Nightmare was my weekly video call with my parents. They lived in a small, quiet town in rural Oregon, a world away from the tech-fueled frenzy of Seattle. My father was a retired engineer, my mother a librarian. Their home, which I saw on the screen behind them, was filled with books and the beautiful, hand-woven bannig mats my Lola had sent them from Sibilam years ago. It was a home, built on the same quiet, steady principles I had tried to build my life on. "How is the big project, Anak?" my mother asked during one call, her face full of pride. "It's on hold, Ma," I said, the lie tasting like ash in my mouth. "We're focusing on some other priorities right now." "Ah," my father said, and I could see the familiar, gentle disappointment in his eyes. He was a builder. The idea of shelving a finished working project was anathema to him. Well, good work is never wasted. It will find its time. I hung up the phone each week with a fresh wave of shame. I was letting them down. I was letting my Lola's legacy of quiet, fierce strength down. I was letting myself be put in a box. I was becoming another cog in Mark Brew's machine. The thought was so bleak it felt like I was drowning. But I had no idea how deep the water was about to get. The email arrived on a Tuesday morning. The subject line was splashed in the company's cheerful, optimistic brand font. Big wins, celebrating innovation at Aperture. It was a company-wide memo from the vice president of our division. I almost deleted it without reading. I assumed it was another announcement about the Pegasus update. I opened it, and my world tilted on its axis. The email was a long, gushing tribute to visionary leadership. It was about a new, groundbreaking project that was set to revolutionize our entire logistics pipeline. A project that promised to be the biggest innovation at Aperture in a decade. The memo was a celebration of its brilliant creator, its visionary architect, a man named Mark Brewer. The project's name was Project Foresight. I stared at the name, my mind refusing to make the connection. Foresight, a different project. It has to be. But then I kept reading. The email was filled with quotes from the project proposal, phrases I had written, data points I had generated, ... a paradigm-shifting leap from reactive to predictive analytics, ... leveraging a proprietary AI model to forecast disruptions with an unprecedented 99.7% accuracy, ... an estimated cost savings of over $200 million annually, ... It was my work, my words, my data, my soul. He had taken my Chimera, my beautiful, complex creation, and slapped a stupid, corporate-approved new name on it. He had stolen my soul and given it a lobotomy. The email included a link to the project's official page on the company intranet. I clicked on it, my hand trembling, a sick, cold feeling spreading through my chest. And there it was, my presentation. My slides, my graphs, my entire intellectual property, now with his name and his face plastered all over it. He hadn't just stolen the idea, he had stolen the work. The whole entire thing. The air in the open plan office suddenly felt thin, unbreathable. The cheerful chatter of my colleagues, the clicking of keyboards, it all faded into a distant, roaring hum. I could feel the blood draining from my face. I looked across the office. Mark was surrounded by a crowd of people from other departments. They were clapping him on the back, shaking his hand. He was laughing, beaming, soaking in the adoration. He was accepting congratulations for a project he had told me, to my face, to shelve. For a project he did not understand in the slightest. A few of my own teammates, the ones who had seen my original presentation, shot me quick, pitying glances before looking away. Their faces full of a guilty, cowardly discomfort. They knew. Of course they knew. But in the cutthroat world of Aperture Dynamics, you don't challenge the man who is clearly on his way to the top. You just keep your head down and pray he doesn't notice you. The final paragraph of the email was the part that truly stopped my heart. The potential of Project Foresight is so immense. The VP had written that it has already captured the attention of our CEO, Ms. Davenport. She has scheduled a final top-level presentation with Mr. Brewer for Monday, August 4th to make the final decision on an immediate, company-wide rollout. Please join me in congratulating Mark on this incredible achievement and wishing him the best of luck. Ms. Davenport, the CEO, she was a legend. A brilliant, terrifying, and utterly unforgiving engineer who had built this company from nothing. A presentation with her was a career-making or career-breaking event. And Mark, my technically illiterate, charismatic, thieving boss, was about to walk into the lion's den with my work as his only weapon. And then the final, surreal, impossible twist. He broke away from his crowd of admirers and glided over. To my desk, he was glowing, radiant with the light of his unearned success. "Chloe," he said, his voice a low conspiratorial boom. "Can you believe it? We did it! Our little project is going to the big leagues." To agree to help Mark was the easiest lie I had ever told. To sit in a conference room with him for the next 2 weeks, day after day, and actively assist in the theft of my own soul that was the hardest work of my life. The days took on a surreal, nightmarish quality. I was living a double life. By day, I was Chloe Reyes, the loyal, supportive, technically brilliant subordinate, helping my visionary boss prepare for the presentation of a lifetime. By night, I was a saboteur, a ghost in the machine, meticulously, lovingly, and ruthlessly building a weapon of mass destruction with his name on it. Our prep sessions were a masterclass in his particular brand of corporate performance art. He didn't want to understand the project. He wanted to learn the script. "Okay, walk me through the neural network thing again," he'd say, leaning back in his chair, his feet up on the conference table. "But this time, do it in a way a 5-year-old could understand. Give me the soundbite." And so, my teeth clenched so hard my jaw ached, I would take the most complex, elegant piece of my algorithm and distill it into a stupid, meaningless metaphor for him. "Think of it like a brain mark," I'd say, my voice a monotone of forced patience. "It has billions of tiny little roads. And every time it sees a new piece of data storm in the Pacific, a tweet from a union leader, it learns which roads lead to a traffic jam in our supply chain. The more it sees, the smarter it gets at predicting the jams before they happen." "Nice," he'd nod, typing it into his laptop. "I like that. A brain for our supply chain. It's clean. It's sticky." He wasn't learning the science. He was memorizing his lines. He was a bad actor preparing for the role of a genius. And I was his unwilling and secretly treacherous script doctor. He would ask questions that revealed the breathtaking, cavernous depth of his ignorance. "So, the AI, is it like on the cloud?" he asked once, with genuine wide-eyed curiosity. I had to spend 20 minutes explaining the basics of our own company's server architecture to him. He was the director of a tech division, and he had the technical acumen of a toaster. This process, as infuriating as it was also profoundly clarifying. It confirmed my central thesis. He was a fraud all the way down. He had no idea how Chimera wrote Project Foresight, as he insisted on calling it tactually worked. He was a man who had stolen a Formula One race car and thought he could win the Grand Prix because he knew how to hold the steering wheel. He would be completely, utterly helpless the moment anything went wrong. And I was going to make sure something went very, very wrong. My real work began at night. Offices had emptied out after the last of the janitorial staff had made their rounds. I would let myself back into the building. The vast, silent, open-plan office, bathed in the cold blue glow of the server lights, was my secret laboratory. My revenge would not be an act of passion. It would be an act of elegant, perfect code. I opened the source code for Chimera. My beautiful, brilliant creation. To deliberately cripple her felt like a betrayal. It was a painful, ugly thing. But the memory of Mark's smiling, thieving face was all the motivation I needed. I was not crippling her. I was weaponizing her. I decided against a crude, obvious bug. A simple crash would be too suspicious, too easily traced back to me as a deliberate act of sabotage. No, my revenge had to be more subtle, more artistic. The program wouldn't crash. It would perform. It would give him exactly what he asked. But the result would be so catastrophically, so absurdly wrong that it would expose him not just as a thief, but as an incompetent fool who couldn't even tell the difference between a revolutionary insight and a piece of digital nonsense. I was going to build him a Trojan horse. The logic bomb I designed was my masterpiece. It was a small, elegant, an utterly vicious piece of recursive code buried deep within the data ingestion module. It was designed with a single specific trigger. Chimera, as I had built her, worked flawlessly on historical data sets, the neatly packaged, clean data from our archives that we used for testing. The logic bomb was coded to remain completely dormant when fed this kind of data, but the bomb had a tripwire. It was coded to activate only when it detected the unique, chaotic, and complex data signature of Aperture Dynamics' live real-time global supply chain feed. The one I knew Ms. Davenport, a notoriously thorough engineer, would demand to see. When that live data hit the algorithm, the bomb would detonate. It would trigger a cascade failure in the predictive model's weighting system. It would begin to prioritize the most absurd, most statistically irrelevant data points. A single sarcastic tweet from a dock worker in Antwerp would be given more weight than an official hurricane warning from the National Weather Service. The price of fish in the markets of my Lola's hometown of Sibilum would suddenly become the primary predictor for the price of silicon chips out of Taiwan. The result would be a set of predictions so insane, so financially ludicrous, that it would make the entire project look like the fever dream of a madman as I wrote the code, weaving this beautiful, deadly poison into the heart of my own creation. My mind kept drifting back to a memory from my childhood. I was about 10, visiting my Lola in Sibilom for Christmas. She was teaching me how to make a parol, the traditional Filipino Christmas lantern. I remember the feel of the thin bamboo, sticks in my hands, the delicate colored paper that tore so easily. I watched her, her hands so patient and sure as she built the intricate star-shaped frame. It looked so simple, so beautiful when it was done, a perfect, glowing star. But I knew the secret. I knew about the complex, hidden framework underneath, the dozens of carefully placed joints and ties that gave it its strength and its shape. That's what I was building. A parole? From the outside, when Mark tested it, it would look beautiful, perfect, a glowing star of data. I was building it with a hidden, fatal flaw in its framework. And when the pressure of the live data was applied, the whole beautiful thing was designed to collapse into a pile of useless, ugly sticks. The week before the presentation was a series of dress rehearsals. We booked the executive boardroom on the 40th floor, the same room where the real presentation would take place. It was a cold, minimalist space dominated by a single, massive black marble table and a floor-to-ceiling window that looked out over the whole of Seattle. I stood at the back of the room, playing the part of the loyal tech support, while Mark stood at the podium and practiced his speech, and he was good. I had to give him that. He was a phenomenal performer. He took my complex technical explanations and translated them into the kind of soaring, visionary corporate poetry that executives loved. He spoke of synergy, of disruption, of a future-proof paradigm. He was selling my car with the passion and conviction of a man who had designed it himself. It was nauseating. And now, he'd say, gesturing grandly to the screen, Let's see foresight in action. Chloe, run the simulation. And I would, my face a mask of professional neutrality. Run the program using the historical datasets. My logic bomb was dormant. Chimera, my beautiful crippled Chimera, performed flawlessly. The graphs were perfect. The predictions were stunningly accurate. As you can see, Mark would say, a proud fatherly smile on his face, the results speak for themselves. The first time we ran through it, he was nervous. By the third time, he was confident. By the fifth and final rehearsal, the day before the presentation, he was positively beaming. He believed his own lies. He had so completely absorbed my work as his own that he had forgotten it was not his. He was not just performing the role of a genius. He believed he was one. He had no idea the script I had written for him had a secret. Tragic final act. That was perfect, Chloe, he said, clapping me on the shoulder after the final run-through. The gesture felt proprietary, condescending. We're going to kill it tomorrow. Davenport is going to be blown away. Program is running smoothly, I said, my voice a monotone. You're my rock star, he said, his eyes shining. When I get the VP promotion after this, I'm taking you with me. We're a team. We're a team. The lie was so effortless, so natural. It was almost a thing of beauty. That evening, I did the final system check. I loaded the presentation onto a secure USB drive. The Trojan horse was ready for delivery. I walked over to his office. He was on the phone, laughing. No doubt accepting pre-congratulations from one of his cronies. I placed the USB drive on his desk. He looked at it, then up at me, a dazzling smile on his face. The magic wand. He said with a wink. It's all there, I said. The presentation, the data files, the executable for the program. It's all ready to go. He took the drive, his fingers brushing mine. The casual contact made my skin crawl. Couldn't have done it without you, Chloe, he said, his voice full of a deep, sincere, and utterly false gratitude. I looked him in the eye, my face a perfect blank slate. I know, I said. I walked out of his office, my heart a cold. Steady beat. The trap was set. The bomb was armed. The script was finalized. All that was left was for the star of the show to walk onto the stage tomorrow, take his bow, and detonate himself in front of the entire world. The executive boardroom at Aperture Dynamics is on the 40th floor. It's a place designed to make you feel small. One wall is a single 50-foot pane of glass that offers a god's eye view of Seattle, from the Space Needle to the gray churning. Waters of Puget Sound. The other walls are stark white. The only decoration, a single massive abstract painting that probably costs more than my education. The air is cool and recycled, and it smells of nothing at all. It is the sterile, silent throne room of the tech gods. And today, Monday, August 4th, 2025, it was to be the stage for Mark Brewer's coronation. Or, if my work was as good as I believed, it to be his public execution. I was the first one there, as befitting my role as the humble technical support. I set up the presentation on the room's holographic projector. I checked the data ports, and I made sure the secure connection for the live feed was active. My hands were steady. My heart was a slow, cold drum. I was not nervous. I was a bomb maker who had already planted the device. Now, I was just waiting for the target to arrive. The executives filed in one by one. There was David Chen, the CFO, a man who saw the world as a spreadsheet. There was Sarah Jenkins, the coup, a woman with a reputation for ruthless efficiency. And then, exactly at 9 a.m., the CEO herself, Ms. Evelyn Davenport, walked in. Davenport was a legend. She was a brilliant engineer who had started this company in her garage 30 years ago. She was in her late 60s now, a small bird-like woman with sharp, intelligent eyes that missed absolutely nothing. She did not suffer fools, and she could smell bullshit from a mile away. She was the one variable in my plan that I could not completely control. If she sensed something was wrong, if she cut the presentation short, my entire beautiful, intricate trap would be for nothing. Mark would survive. I needed him to have the stage long enough to fail completely. "Mark," she said, her voice a crisp, no-nonsense alto. "The entire executive board has cleared their schedules for this. We are all very eager to see the project you've been telling us so much about. Don't waste our time." Mark, to his credit, was born for this kind of pressure. He strode to the front of the room, a vision of charismatic, confident leadership. He was wearing a ridiculously expensive suit, his hair perfectly coiffed, his smile a dazzling weapon of mass distraction. "Thank you, Ms. Davenport, members of the board," he began, his voice a smooth, confident baritone that filled the room. "What I want to talk about today is not just a new piece of software. I want to talk about the future. I want to talk about foresight." I retreated to my small chair in the corner of the room, my laptop open, my face a mask of neutral, professional attentiveness. The show was beginning. For the next 45 minutes, Mark delivered the performance of his life. He was magnificent. He was a maestro, conducting a symphony of stolen ideas and perfectly rehearsed sound bites. He used my slides, my data, my very words. And he delivered them with a passion and a conviction that was almost believable. He started with the problem, painting a vivid picture of the millions of dollars our company lost each year to supply chain disruptions. Then he introduced his solution. "What if," he said, his voice dropping to a dramatic whisper, "we could see the future? What if we could know about a disruption before it happened? What if we had a crystal ball?" He clicked a button, and the elegant, minimalist logo I had designed for Chimera rebranded with the ugly corporate name Foresight appeared on the screen behind him. "Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Project Foresight, a paradigm-shifting leap from reactive to predictive analytics, a true first of its kind, proprietary AI model that will serve as a veritable brain for our entire global supply chain." He was a poet of plagiarism. He walked them through the high-level concepts, using the simple, five-year-old friendly metaphors I had fed him. He never got bogged down in the technical details because he didn't know any. He just painted a beautiful, seductive picture of the results. The executives were eating it up. The CFO, David Chen, was nodding along, his mind clearly dancing. With the prospect of adding $200 million to his bottom line, the coup, Sarah Jenkins, looked intrigued, her usual skepticism melting away in the face of Mark's overwhelming confidence. "Now, let's see it in action," Mark said, moving to the interactive portion of his performance. "Chloe, if you..." Would I, the loyal subordinate, typed a command into my laptop. On the main screen, the Foresight program came to life, its interface clean and beautiful. "Let's look at last year's Q3, Mark said. "As we all know, we were hit by that unexpected typhoon in the South China Sea, which cost us nearly $20 million in shipping delays. I loaded the historical data from that period. The AI began to process it. A beautiful, complex web of data points filled the screen. Then, a single stark prediction appeared. Alert! 98.7% probability of port closure in Shanghai in 72 hours. Due to tropical storm formation, as you can see, Mark said, a proud smile on his face. Foresight saw the storm coming 3 days before it even had a name. It would have given us enough time to reroute our shipments, saving the entire 20 million. He ran another simulation. And another. Each one was a perfect, stunning success. He showed them how the AI could have predicted a dock workers strike, a sudden spike in fuel costs, a parts shortage from a supplier in Germany. My crippled, beautiful Chimera was performing flawlessly. I felt a strange, perverse pang of pride, immediately followed by the cold, thrilling anticipation of the betrayal to come. He was winning. The room was his. He had them completely convinced that he was the visionary, the genius, the next great leader of aperture dynamics. He had built his triumph on the foundation of my work, and now he was standing on the very pinnacle of his career. He finished his final slide. "K." And that, he concluded, his voice ringing with a final grand flourish, is the future. That is foresight. He was met with a round of impressed, enthusiastic applause. Even Ms. Davenport was nodding, a small, rare smile on her face. Very impressive. "Mark," she said, her voice cutting through the applause. "Very impressive indeed. The back testing is clean. The potential is undeniable." Mark beamed, a king accepting the praise of his queen. "Thank you, Evelyn. We're very excited about it." The word was a small, sharp sting. Ms. Davenport leaned forward, her sharp eyes fixed on the screen. "Now," she said, her voice still pleasant, but with a new, hard edge of steel underneath. "Let's see what it can do at the present." Mark's smile didn't falter, but I saw a brief flicker of something in his eyes. Not fear, just a slight confusion. He hadn't prepared for this. I had, of course, told him it was a possibility, but he had been so focused on memorizing his script, he had dismissed it. "The past is easy to predict," the CEO continued, her voice cool and analytical. "You already know the answers. I want to see how it handles the beautiful, unpredictable chaos of right now. I want to see it run on the live global feed. Today's data right now." This was it. The tripwire. The moment the entire elaborate, beautiful trap was leading to. The room was silent, everyone looking at Mark. This was the ultimate test, the one he could not have possibly prepared for. He had no script for this. He didn't hesitate. His arrogance, his fatal flaw, was too great. He saw this not as a test, but as his grand finale. His victory lap. "Of course, Evelyn," he said with a smooth, confident smile. "I was hoping you'd ask. The real magic of foresight is in its real-time capabilities." He turned his dazzling smile to me in my dark corner of the room. "Chloe, you heard the lady, Patch, in the live feed for the CEO." I looked up from my laptop, my face a mask of calm, professional obedience. I met his eyes, gave me a small, conspiratorial wink, as if to say, "This is it, our big moment." A memory flashed through my mind. My Lolo, my grandfather, standing on the shore in Sibyllum, teaching me how to cast a fishing net. He'd shown me how to let the line play out, to let the fish believe it was free, to feel the gentle tugs without reacting. And then he had shown me the exact moment, the precise, perfect feeling of tension when it was time to pull the net shut. Patience, Knack, he had said, and then strength. The line was taut. It was time to pull the net. I nodded. To mark? Yes, sir, I said. I turned back to my keyboard. My fingers hovered over the keys for a moment, and then I typed the command. Run live analysis. I hit the Enter key. On the giant screen, a new window opened. A river of code, of raw real-time data from 1,000 different sources around the world began to flow into the heart of my program, into the beautiful, patient, and perfectly hidden time bomb that was waiting there. Mark turned back to the screen, his chest puffed out, a triumphant smile on his face, ready to receive his crown. He had no idea he was about to detonate himself. The resignation email I sent to Ms. Davenport was the shortest, simplest, and most honest piece of writing I had ever produced. Subject: Thank you, dear Evelyn. Thank you for the opportunity. I have neutralized the threat, and the Chimera project is now in the capable hands of my team. I am going home. Sincerely, Chloe Reyes. A reply came in less than 5 minutes. Home is a good place to be. Your stock options are fully vested. Godspeed. And just like that, it was over. My career at Aperture Dynamics, my life in Seattle, my identity as a corporate warrior, I let it all go. I packed one suitcase, left the keys to my minimalist apartment on the counter, and walked away. The victory in the boardroom felt like a lifetime ago. It had been necessary, it had been just, but it had also been hollow. It was a victory measured in stock prices and schadenfreude. I was hungry for a victory that was measured in something real. The flight from Seattle to Manila was a 17-hour journey through the dark, a time of quiet transition. But the real journey began at the Iloilo International Airport. As I stepped out of the air-conditioned terminal and into the thick, warm, humid air of the Visayas, the West that I had mastered fell away, and the East that was in my blood rose up to greet me. The 3-hour bus ride to Antique was a symphony of sensory overload that reawakened a part of my soul I had long kept dormant. Sleek, silent Teslas of Seattle were replaced by the roaring, gloriously decorated jeepneys, their chrome horses rearing on their hoods. The cool gray palette of the Pacific Northwest was replaced by an impossible, vibrant green of rice paddies, so bright it hurt my eyes. The air didn't smell of nothing. It smelled of everything. Of diesel fumes, of roasting pork from a roadside lechonin, of the sweet, cloying scent of tropical flowers. And underneath it all, the rich, dark smell of the earth itself. We passed through small towns, each with its own beautiful, crumbling Spanish-era church and a basketball court full of laughing, shouting kids. I saw farmers guiding their carabaos through muddy fields, their movements slow, patient, and unchanged by centuries. This was the world my grandparents had come from. A world of quiet work, of deep roots. A world without corporate buzzwords, without strategic roadmaps, without the constant grinding pressure to innovate and disrupt. It was a world that simply was. And for the first time in years, I felt the tight, anxious knot in my shoulders begin to unclench. The bus let me off at the crossroads just outside Sablom. A man was waiting for me under the shade of a massive acacia tree. He was old, his skin the color of dark, rich soil, his face a beautiful map of wrinkles. He wore a simple cotton shirt and sandals. It was my Lolo, my mother's father. He didn't rush to hug me. He just stood there, his eyes as sharp and intelligent as my own, taking me in. "You are thin, Opokeo," he said. his voice a gentle musical rasp. "Granddaughter, I've been working hard, Lolo," I said. A lump forming in my throat. "I know," he said. "Your mother told me." "You won a great battle." He picked up my single suitcase as if it weighed nothing. "Come, the house has missed you." The family home in Sibilum was not a fortress. It was an embrace. A beautiful old wooden house, raised on stilts, with wide open windows framed by Cappy's shells that glowed in the afternoon sun. It was surrounded not by perimeter walls, but by a chaotic, fragrant garden of hibiscus, bougainvillea, and fruit trees. As I walked onto the shaded veranda, the feeling was so overwhelming it almost brought me to my knees. This was the place in the photograph on my desk. It's the place I had focused on to keep from screaming in that sterile boardroom. This was my family's true home. We sat on the veranda in 2 old rocking chairs, a plate of sweet, ripe mangoes between us. He didn't ask me about Mark or the CEO or the specifics of my corporate war. He asked about the rain in Seattle. He asked if I was eating enough. He asked if I was happy. "I don't know," I answered honestly, the question surprising me. In my old life, happiness was not a metric I ever tracked. Success, efficiency, productivity, those were the goals. Happiness was an irrelevant, frivolous variable. I won, Lolo. I got my revenge. Got the promotion. I had everything I thought I wanted, but it felt empty. Like I had solved the equation, but the answer didn't mean anything. My Lolo sliced a mango with his small, sharp knife, the movements of his hands patient and sure. "In my life," he began, his voice a quiet murmur, "I have known 2 kinds of builders. The first kind builds a wall. Its only purpose is to keep others out. He works his whole life on this wall. He makes it high and strong. And when he is done, he has succeeded. He is safe. And he is completely alone in the dark." He handed me a slice of mango. It was sweet and perfect. "The second kind of builder," he continued, "builds a bridge. It is a much harder work, is not as safe, but his purpose is not to keep others out. It is to let them in, to connect one side to the other." He looked at me, his eyes full of a deep, quiet wisdom. "You have a great mind, Chloe, a gift from God. You used it to build a magnificent wall around your heart and a brilliant trap for your enemy. You've proven you are a master wall builder. The question now is, what kind of builder do you want to be for the rest of your life?" The next morning, he took me into town. Not to the market, not to the church. He took me to a small, dusty building at the edge of the village. Inside, a group of older women were sitting on the floor, working at large wooden looms. The air was filled with the rhythmic clacking of the shuttles and the bright, vibrant colors of pineapple and abaca fibers. "This is the Sibilum Weaving Cooperative," my Lolo explained. "Your Lola helped to start this 40 years ago to give the women here a way to earn their own money." An older woman, the head of the cooperative, greeted my Lola with a warm, respectful embrace. She explained the problem. Their designs were beautiful, traditional patterns passed down through generations. But they had no way to sell them outside of the small local market. They had heard of the internet, of online selling. But it was a world as distant and alien to them as the moon. "Our young people," the woman said, her voice full of a weary sadness, "they do not want to learn the old ways. There is no future in it. They all want to go to the city, to work in the call centers." I looked at the intricate, beautiful patterns they were weaving. They were not just patterns. They were algorithms. They were complex, mathematical sequences of color and thread, a form of data visualization passed down through generations. And I thought of the soulless gray corporate patterns I had been analyzing for the past decade. My Lolo didn't say anything. He didn't have to. He had brought me here for a reason. He took me to one more place, the local elementary school. Small, concrete building, its walls painted with cheerful but fading murals. We went to their computer lab. It was a single, dusty room with 3 ancient beige desktop computers that looked like they had been salvaged from a museum. Only one of them was working. The teacher, a young, bright-eyed woman with a hopeful smile, explained that she tried her best. But they had no stable internet connection. And the software was 20 years old. The children here are so smart, she said, her voice full of a passionate frustration. They are curious about the world. But how can I teach them about the future with the tools of the past? I looked at the eager faces of the children, crowded around the one working computer, their eyes wide with wonder. And I thought of the endless, air-conditioned server farms at Aperture Dynamics. The billions of dollars of processing power being used to solve problems like how to get a package from a warehouse to a suburban home 12 minutes faster. We walked back to the house in silence. When we got back to the veranda, my Lolo looked at me. So, he said simply, "What do you think?" I looked out at the sea. I thought of the weavers and their beautiful dying algorithms. I thought of the children and their window to a world they couldn't reach. I thought of my own brilliant, powerful, and utterly soulless creation, Chimera. A machine I had built to make a rich company even richer. My revenge was complete. I had won the battle in Seattle. But the real war, I was beginning to understand, was right here. It was a war against forgetting. A war against a world that tells smart girls in small towns that their dreams are not valuable. I turned to my grandfather. And for the first time since I had stepped off the plane, I felt a genuine, unconflicted smile spread across my face. "I think," I said, my voice full of a new, quiet purpose, "I need to build a few bridges." The command was sent. Run live analysis. On the giant screen at the front of the room, a small, elegant progress bar appeared. Parsing real-time global data stream. Mark stood beside it, his chest puffed out, a benevolent smile on his face as he prepared to receive his promotion. The executives leaned forward, their faces a mixture of curiosity and anticipation. Ms. Davenport. The CEO watched with the intensity of a hawk, her sharp eyes missing nothing. The room was a pressure cooker of silent, high-stakes expectation. And I, in my corner, the quiet bomb maker, simply watched and waited for the world to end. The progress bar hit 100%. The screen refreshed, and the implosion began. It started subtly. The first predictive chart that appeared on the screen was not the elegant, upward curving line of projected profit we had seen in the rehearsals. Instead, it was a jagged, chaotic scribble, like a seismograph reading during a massive earthquake. The CFO, David Chen, muttered, squinting at the screen. "That's an unusual metric variance." Still confident, laughed it off. "The live feed is always a little chaotic," he said smoothly. "The algorithm is just normalizing the initial data influx. It will stabilize in a moment." It did not stabilize. It got worse. A new window popped up, labeled Priority 1. Advisory. The text was large and stark. Market trend analysis complete. Recommendation: immediate and total corporate investment in the Betamax home video format. Market is poised for an explosive resurgence. Confused, uncomfortable silence fell over the boardroom. The coup, Sarah Jenkins, actually took her glasses, often polished them, as if she could not possibly be seeing correctly. Mark's smile faltered. He stared at the screen, his face a mask of pure, uncomprehending shock. That's an anomaly, he stammered. A data ghost. Let me just reset the parameters. He fumbled with the wireless mouse, his hands starting to tremble. He clicked on a new module, one labeled Global Logistics Optimization. The screen refreshed with a map of the world, our shipping routes traced in glowing blue lines. Then, the program began its optimization. A new bright red line appeared, charting a new optimized shipping route from our factories in China to our distribution centers in Europe. It was a jagged, insane path that went from Shanghai up through the Bering Strait, over the North Pole, down through Greenland, and then made a series of bizarre, nonsensical loops over the Atlantic before finally landing in Rotterdam. The text box beside it read, "New route analysis complete, 12,000%. Efficiency gain detected. Advisory reroute all Pacific shipping through the Swiss Alps for maximum efficiency." The silence in the room was now deafening. The air was thick with a new, horrifying emotion, second-hand embarrassment. Mark was standing at the podium, his face ashen, staring at the screen as if it were a venomous snake. The program he had claimed as his own visionary creation was having a complete, psychotic, and very, very public breakdown. There seems to be a slight calibration issue. He stammered, his voice a pathetic squeak. He was sweating now, dark patches appearing on his expensive custom-tailored shirt. But Chimera, my beautiful avenging angel of chaos, was just getting started. A final window filled the screen. It was the executive summary. It was a bulleted list of pure, unadulterated madness. Forecast 3,000% increase in demand for carrier pigeons in the North American logistics sector. Advise immediate acquisition of major pigeon breeding operations. Market analysis. The future of data storage is in artisanal, handwritten ledgers. Divest from all cloud-based assets immediately. Conclusion. The primary driver of all global economic activity is the current market price of mangoes in the western Visayas region of the Philippines. All corporate strategy should be pegged to this metric. The CFO made a small, choked sound. Ku was covering her mouth with her hand, though I couldn't tell if it was to stifle a laugh or a gasp of horror. Mark Brewer was a man in free fall, and he had forgotten he didn't have a parachute. He began to click frantically, desperately, trying to close the windows, to get back to the beautiful fake slides from the rehearsal. But with every click, it got worse. Charts turned into kaleidoscopic nightmares, graphs twisted into nonsense. The screen was a Jackson Pollock painting of his own incompetence. I don't understand, he said, his voice pleading now, looking around at the stone-faced executives. It was working perfectly yesterday. There must be a bug, a server issue. Chloe. He looked at me, his eyes wide with a desperate, drowning plea. Save me. I looked back at him, my face a perfect blank mask of mild professional concern. I did not move, I did not speak. I just let him hang there, twisting in the wind of his own lies. And then the quiet, calm voice of the CEO, Evelyn Davenport, cut through the room like a surgeon's scalpel. "Stop!" she said. Mark froze. his hand hovering over the mouse. She wasn't looking at the screen anymore. She was looking at him. Her gaze was not angry. It was analytical. It was the gaze of an engineer who has just watched a critical component fail and is calmly, coldly, diagnosing the point of failure. "You don't have any idea what's wrong, do you, Mark?" she asked. It was not a question. It was a statement. "A fact! Of course I do!" he blustered, his voice cracking. "It's a momentary data bottleneck interacting with the heuristic. The synaptic feedback loop." He was just spewing a word salad of the buzzwords I had taught him. A desperate, pathetic attempt to bluff his way out of a nuclear crater of his own making. Ms. Davenport held up a single, elegant hand, and he fell silent. The man I hired 20 years ago to run my first marketing department was a brilliant bullshitter, she said, her voice a quiet, reflective murmur. He could sell anything. But he knew the one cardinal rule. Never, ever try to bullshit an engineer about the machine. She stood up. Her eyes were like ice. "That's enough, Mark. You can go." The words were so quiet, so simple, and so utterly, completely devastating. She hadn't yelled. She hadn't fired him. She had just dismissed him. Like a butler dismissing a stable boy. He stood there for a moment, a ruined man in $1,000 suit. Then, without another word, he turned and with a last ragged shreds of his dignity, he walked out of the executive boardroom. His career, his reputation, his entire future, a smoking pile of wreckage behind him. The executives in the room were silent, all of them pointedly avoiding looking at each other or at the still chaotic screen. The CEO's cold, analytical gaze then swept the room and landed on me, the quiet, invisible tech support in the corner. "Ms. Reyes," she said. My real name. The one that wasn't on the presentation. My heart gave a single, hard thump. "Report to my private office in 1 hour," she commanded. "I suggest you bring the original source code for your Project Chimera." The fallout was swift and silent. Mark Brewer was gone by the end of the day. No dramatic firing. His name was just removed from the company directory. His office was empty the next morning. He had become a ghost. A corporate cautionary tale. My meeting with Ms. Davenport was short and to the point. Sat in her vast minimalist office, and I did not lie. I did not confess to the sabotage. I simply presented the truth. I showed her my original project proposal for Chimera, time-stamped a year ago. I showed her the email from Mark telling me to shelve it. I let the facts speak for themselves. She listened, her face impassive. When I was done, she just nodded. "I am promoting you to director of the new Advanced Analytics Division," she said, as if she were telling me the time. "You will report directly to me. Your Project Chimera will be your first priority. I want a full, clean, non-sabotaged version on my desk in 2 months. Don't disappoint me," and that was it. No questions about the logic bomb. No discussion of my methods. She was an engineer. She didn't care about the drama. She cared about the machine. And she knew who the real builder was. My revenge was complete. It was a quiet, corporate, and absolute victory. I had not just won. I had been vindicated. I had been seen. But as I sat in my new, larger office a week later, looking out at the Seattle rain, I didn't feel the triumphant joy I had expected. I felt quiet. The fire of my anger had burned itself out, and in its place was a cool, clean, empty space. I looked at the small photo on my desk, the one of my family on the beach. In Sibyllum, I thought of my father's quiet wisdom, of my mother's fierce love. I had spent so long in this cold, logical world of code and corporations. I had won the game. But I realized with a sudden, startling clarity that I didn't want to play anymore. I opened my laptop. I didn't open the code for Chimera. I opened a web browser, and I booked a plane ticket. A one-way ticket to the Philippines. The victory over Mark wasn't the end of my story. It was the end of a chapter. And I was finally ready to start a new one. I was going home.